House issuing repeated rulings against President Trump. Now the focus of House and Senate Republicans who are looking for ways to push back on that. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom. I'm Dana Perino.
You doing all right for Thursday?
Yes, and you?
Me too.
But
doing great,
fast.
as you say. Great. I'm Bill Hammer. Good morning. Lawmakers eyeing legislation, setting up hearings in both the House and the Senate now. They will examine these nationwide injunctions and how they're being used against President Trump like really never before. House Speaker Mike Johnson was asked about it, calling it a dangerous trend.
In the last 100 years, listen to this, 67% of the injunctions issued against a president were issued against one president alone, and that's Donald J. Trump. Something unusual is happening, something that is out of the norm. It is a dangerous trend, and it violates equal justice under law, that critical principle. It violates our system itself.
Senior national correspondent Aisha Hosni is on Capitol Hill with more. Hi, Aisha. Good morning.
Hey, good morning to you guys. So Republicans certainly don't have the votes, right, to remove a judge right now, which is why they're looking at every other toolbox or tool in their toolbox, and that includes legislation. So we'll start with Senator Josh Hawley. He is proposing a bill to basically end nationwide injunctions. Listen to him.
I think it's time that we reined in district court judges who are trying to bind parties who are not in front of them and who are trying to control national policy when they do not have the authority to do that under Article 3. So that's why I've introduced legislation that would end nationwide injunctions.
So Republicans, House Judiciary Republican Chairman Jim Jordan and Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley have also announced identical hearings next week on federal judges and their nationwide orders. Speaker Johnson has even hinted that House committees may wind up questioning some of these judges who've ruled against President Trump, so we'll see where that goes. Republican leaders are also reportedly considering a vote on the House-passed Judges Act. That bill would add dozens of new seats on federal district courts before the end of 2035. And as you know, Dana and Bill, Congress has really not added new district court judges in more than 2 decades. And finally, Speaker Johnson has suggested using Congress's power of the purse to cut funding to some of these district courts, saying the legislative body can and will eliminate an entire district court. So certainly they are trying to appease President Trump and really to push back on these judges and let them know that they can't get away with this. Dana, Bill.
Aisha Hosni on the Hill. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we have more on this coming up. We will be joined later this hour by Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley. He is holding a hearing on judges next week, so a timely interview indeed.
Is NPR biased?
Congressman, I have never seen any instance of political bias determining editorial decisions. No.
In the D.C. area, editorial positions at NPR, he said he found 87 registered Democrats, 0 Republicans. Is that accurate?
We do not track the numbers or the voter registration.
87 to 0, and you're not biased?
I think that is concerning if those numbers are accurate.
Okay, that's how it went. NPR and PBS playing defense during a heated House DOJ subcommittee hearing on the Hill. As House Republicans press the nation's public broadcasters on media accountability and media bias. Mike Emanuel's live in D.C. This is a new committee given the development of DOJ. And Mike, what happened?
Bill, good morning. There was intense questioning from some leading Republicans who accused the public broadcasting networks of promoting liberal bias.
I don't even recognize the station anymore. It's not news. I feel like it's propaganda. I feel like there's disinformation every time I listen to NPR. And, you know, a media entity like MSNBC or Huffington Post that, in my opinion, consistently spews disinformation.
There were some awkward moments, such as when the president and CEO of NPR was confronted about her old political tweets.
Why did you call President Trump a fascist and a deranged racist sociopath in 2020?
Congressman, I appreciate the opportunity to address this. I regret those tweets. I would not tweet them again today.
With President Trump saying he would, quote, love to see federal funding cut off, the public broadcasting networks are facing a significant threat. They receive roughly $500 million in tax money through the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, so they have to defend what they do.
PBS programming and the services that local stations provide bring Americans together. It is valued, needed, and trusted by the American people.
The Democrats dismissed the hearing as a distraction and made reference to a popular PBS character.
So the message, I think, today is very, very simple. If we're going to get rid of any puppeteers, we should get rid of the one that's actually controlling Donald Trump. Fire Elon Musk and save Elmo.
But Republicans maintain if public broadcasting receives tax dollars, it shouldn't lean left. Bill?
Mike, thanks. Interesting hearing there. More coming up now. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, and more on this with National Review staff writer Caroline Downey and Boston Globe opinion writer Corinne Hajar. Great to have you both. I want you to listen to one more. This was something that had been a reckoning coming for NPR for a while, and that was the Hunter Biden laptop story and why they totally blew it off. Watch here.
First of all, I do want to say that NPR acknowledges that we were mistaken in failing to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story more aggressively and sooner.
It's unfortunate that NPR ignored the Hunter Biden laptop story, but y'all did talk quite a bit about the debunked Russia collusion. Do you know how many times NPR interviewed Adam Schiff about
Congressman, I would love to say that we actually believe we made a mistake on the Hunter Biden laptop story.
Caroline.
She's only having a mea culpa because she's in the hot seat now. But yeah, I mean, a couple editors, they were on the record saying that that was a tabloid, so we don't think it merits coverage. They also said that the lab leak theory was not worth covering, even though now it's fully embraced by the international community. So I think it's just important to step back and say, why does this outlet, which is posing as neutral and posing as representative of the entire electorate, why do they deserve an advantage over other media outlets? You know, it can be a left-wing rag masquerading as real news, but not on taxpayer dime. Even if it is 1% of their financing, you know, that's still too much for most of the American people.
The number is $535 million that some of the funds go directly to NPR and PBS. So the president was asked about it, soundbite number 2, and said this on the question.
Would you be interested in defunding and taking away taxpayer dollars to NPR and PBS?
Well, I would love to do that. I think it's very unfair. It's been very biased, the whole group. I mean, a whole group of them. It's a waste of money, especially. I don't even know what DOJ's recommendation is. I assume their recommendation is to close them up.
I don't know if that happens or not, but she said yesterday, much of my thinking has evolved over the last half decade. Which is...
Or half a year.
Which is 5 years, maybe even that too.
I mean, I sure hope so. I think that this is often framed as Republicans being really disgruntled that they're not being represented, but this is also a disservice to moderates and liberals. I covered Trump voters throughout the whole campaign, and the level of frustration that I saw was not being reflected in the mainstream media. That means that media is not helping Americans not only understand current events, but understanding each other. That's driving polarization. And, you know, we have to think about the journalistic skills that are being selected for here. Hunter Biden's story might have appeared a tabloid to them, but chase it down, get the facts. If it doesn't look good, then move on to the next thing. But they didn't even do that. That's a disservice to Americans.
The other thing that we've been covering this week is some have called her a new star in the Democratic Party, Jasmine Crockett. She is from Texas. She had a very disparaging remark about Governor Abbott, who was in a wheelchair. She called him Governor Hot Wheels, and then she tried to very messily walk it back. Hillary Vaughn caught up with her yesterday in the hallway, and she was more shy. Watch.
I saw your comment explaining your comment calling Governor Abbott Hot Wheels. I put out a statement regarding that. You didn't apologize. I put out a statement. Why would I apologize when I put out a statement? My statement was clear. But you didn't apologize for calling him Governor Hot Wheels when he gets around in a wheelchair. I don't know how that's offensive. I don't understand. You have a disability. You need me to repeat this to you. Right, but why won't you apologize? I put out a statement. They didn't have an apology. So read my statement. I did read it. It didn't have an apology. Okay. Well, I'm done. You don't feel bad about making fun of someone who is in a wheelchair? Calling her Governor Hot Wheels?
All right. The original statement about Governor Hot Wheels was made in a speech she was giving at the Human Rights Campaign speech.
Yes. Wasn't it Michelle Obama who said, when they go low, we go high? And I think Democrats at this point could teach a masterclass on how to be as obnoxious as possible. And it's sad that Crockett thinks she needs to be repulsive like that to basically get street cred with her party. And this is a consistent trend. Last month, she said that the only people who are concerned about DEI are, quote, mediocre white boys. So this is a trend that keeps on continuing. And make no mistake, the left loves this because it flatters them. It tells them that they don't have to change anything. They can keep the same toxicity that lost them the election.
Trump said the Democrats are going to suffer with this one. He has a way of putting things. She was born in St. Louis, went to college in Houston, represents a district in Dallas that extends to the southeast of there. I think the American people and a lot of viewers are just getting to know her now because she's not afraid to step out there.
No, and what an impression, like you said, Dana, at the Human Rights Campaign. This is going to come at a political cost for her. Not just for her, but there are vulnerable Democrats in Texas, congressional Democrats. Henry Cuellar, Rep. Gonzalez. National Republicans, I think, very cleverly called them out and are asking them for a response. That's the response that voters are going to be looking for. Is this something that represents the Democratic Party? So this is going to come at a political cost. I know some people are talking censure too. I don't know that if that is the most effective tool. I think she's already done herself enough damage.
Right. Interesting. Well, great to have you both.
Yeah, thank you, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Trump also said, I heard her and I thought she was a comedian. That's what he said. Listen, with regard to Doge, inside look later tonight. Elon Musk and several members of his team are going to join Brett from the White House. Special report, exclusive interview at 6 o'clock. And we'll get a sense of the status for where Doge is now at this point, some 65 days in tonight. All right, there's that and there's this, Central America.
We still have thousands of these terrorist organization members in our country, and that we want to get the worst of the worst out so that we can bring more security to the American people.
DHS Secretary Kristi Noem touring a notorious prison in El Salvador and putting Central America on notice about migrant gang members trying to enter the United States.
Also, the president signing an executive order on federal elections mandating proof of U.S. citizenship in order to vote. So where's that going to go?
And a major takedown in the fight against one of the most dangerous gangs, the feds capturing a top leader of MS-13 on the doorstep of the nation's capital.
He is an illegal alien from El Salvador, and he will not be living in our country much longer. He's in custody this morning.
Census data shows roughly 1 in 3 adults age 18 to 34 live at home. I wonder how that stacks up based on American history. Okay, we'll find out.
If you come to our country illegally, this is one of the consequences you could face. First of all, do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
So Kristi Noem on a tour there, DHS Secretary, Central America, coming face to face with alleged migrant gang members. She toured El Salvador's notorious mega prison as part of a trip through Central America. Griff Jenkins got the follow-up in D.C. This can hold 40, maybe 50,000 inmates. Griff, good morning.
A big prison indeed. Good morning, Bill. And those inmates behind Secretary Noem in that video are among the more than 260 criminal aliens deported under the Alien Enemies Act. But as we know now, in a 2-1 decision, the D.C. Court of Appeals upheld Judge Boasberg's restraining order blocking further such flights, ruling those powers are limited to wartime. Now it's likely on a fast track to the Supreme Court, which President Trump feels confident he'll win.
This is not going to end well. So we're getting them out in record numbers, and we're having a lot of problems with the courts because the courts want to pretend they're president, and they're not president. They didn't get 80 million votes.
And while the courts pump the brakes, Noem is pressing ahead, signing a security alliance with Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele to ensure criminal records are shared. Her approach, standing in front of violent, tattooed gang members, issuing that stern warning, is quite a contrast, Bill, to the previous administration when Vice President Harris traveled to Guatemala.
I want to be clear to folks in this region who are thinking about making that dangerous trek to the United States-Mexico border. Do not come. Do not come.
Noem was in Colombia today meeting with President Gustavo Petro and the Colombian National Police, who specialize in targeting criminal organizations. Then she heads to Mexico tomorrow to meet with President Claudia Sheinbaum, who is struggling to defeat those Mexican cartels. And hanging over that meeting is real pressure on Sheinbaum to show progress with Trump's April 2nd tariff deadline looming. We shall see where it goes.
We will. Thank you. I appreciate that, Griff. Josh Scholes, a former FBI intelligence executive. And Josh, good morning. I was down there 5 or 6 years ago with Bill Barr, not at that exact prison, but a smaller prison right in the capital city. And this has no walls. It's an open air prison, and you don't want to spend a night in there, Josh. You know it well. What does Noem's trip mean to the cause?
So first of all, I think, having a cabinet level official go down and cement relationships with a partner country that has done a great job in helping the United States combat gangs like MS-13 sends a clear message. not only in the fact that we're in this together, but that we are partners and appreciative of the help that they're granting.
Okay, so you're aware of this MS-13 leader that was arrested earlier today, right? Commonwealth of Virginia. You followed that story. It happened at the break of dawn today. Here's Pam Bondi in front of the media a short time ago.
America is safer today because of one of the top domestic terrorists in MS-13. He is off the streets. This has been an ongoing directive of President Trump. This guy was living in a neighborhood right around you. No longer, thanks to the great men and women of law enforcement.
Josh, you are very familiar with the group that arrested him. Tell us about that.
So that's an FBI-led gang task force out of Northern Virginia. It's been in existence since the early 2000s, looking to combat MS-13 and other gangs. They've done phenomenal work throughout the last 15 plus years. It's collaborative with state, local, and other federal agencies. So it's really good to see them get the notoriety for the work that they've been doing for the last 15 plus years. Great work.
Okay, when they describe him as the MS-13 leader, is he the leader or just one of many?
He's one of many leaders, as we likely know, we know that last week in New York, there were other leaders arrested, to include somebody that was trying to cross the San Ysidro border, who has been a longtime fugitive. So this crackdown on MS-13 and the scourge they place on our society is phenomenal. Getting these predators off the street is really, really good news for America.
So we brought up this question last time. If you're a leader of MS-13, how do you make it into this country anyway?
Well, there's a myriad of ways you can make it into the country, and crossing the southern border.
That's on us, Josh.
Absolutely, but also there are also, to be clear, Bill, there are folks that are here that are U.S. citizens that are also becoming gang members, and they are also getting prosecuted. But the senior leaders have relationships not only with El Salvador, but with the cartels in Mexico.
Is it becoming more difficult to identify them when they are here? I remember 2017 and 18, MS-13 members, they have a tattoo right across their chest. Is it different now?
I don't think it is different. I mean, I think that the gang members are well known within the communities, that you have phenomenal law enforcement cooperation to root out these gangs that are preying on society and children in our communities. So I don't think it's harder. I think that the intensified effort is actually making it a little bit easier to keep them out and to extradite them. Wow, interesting, because I've been told that it's more difficult, because they're getting smarter about the way they infiltrate and adjust in our communities. And you have a different view on that. Josh, how many do you think are here? Well, public reporting has it at about 15,000 with a total of about 70,000. I think, judging those numbers, it's always tough to tell. Probably worldwide about 50,000 as they're starting to spread. And certainly, Bill, to get back to your last point, gangs evolve. So when they find out through criminal indictments how they were infiltrated, what was going on, and how to continue to apply their trade, they're going to learn from that. So in that regard, law enforcement does have a challenge. But with the concerted effort and cooperation across all law enforcement, they continue to make progress. Well, it worked on Long Island, New York, and that was the first case example we had. And that goes back now about 7-8 years. Josh, thanks for coming on. Appreciate your intel. Thank you. Thank you.
With that legislation and push it to bring that clarity. A federal district judge does not have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions.
A crackdown on district courts. Republicans now taking aim at judges blocking the president's agenda. Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley joins us. And on that next, plus all gas, no brakes. President Trump slapping new tariffs on car imports, what it means for the American auto industry.
These auto tariffs yesterday are a big deal for auto workers in the industry. The president is determined to rebuild our manufacturing base. We want more jobs, more products made right here in the United States, which means more money in the pockets of the American people at the end of the day.
already getting results from these tariffs, and they are moving product back in. They are expanding. They are putting additional product into their existing floor space.
That gentleman was with Dana last hour, the founder of Auto Workers for Trump, giving his stamp of approval. This is President Trump announces 25% tariffs on automobiles and some of these vehicle parts that come from all over the world. The move aims to protect jobs in America while also boosting domestic manufacturing. Is that going to work? Ed Lawrence looks for an answer live from the North Lawn. Is it Edward? Good morning.
Well, we'll have to see. I mean, the president talked with the big three automakers about this move. He said the ones that have manufacturing in the U.S. already, large plants, support this move. He said others will have to make a decision. Now, these tariffs on autos will go into effect on April 2nd. The first tariffs will be collected on April 3rd. It's based on a percentage of the American parts in the finished auto. So if 50% of the parts are American made, 50% of the 25% tariff will be collected. So I asked about policing of this.
On the car tariffs, how do you assure that the car coming into the country is fully built? Could an automaker in Germany say, leave the tires off a car?
We're going to have very strong policing, and it's pretty easy to do. If parts are made in America and a car isn't, those parts are not going to be taxed or tariffed. And we'll have very strong policing as far as that's concerned.
How do you assure Americans then that this will not cause a long-term increase in prices?
Well, look, I think we're going to have a market the likes of which nobody's ever seen before, not in this country. You know, we had the best market ever in my first term. It was the strongest market ever, the best economy ever. And I think I think this blows it away.
So praise for the auto tariffs coming from an unlikely supporter, the UAW president, Shawn Fain, saying with these tariffs, thousands of good-paying blue-collar auto jobs could be brought back to working-class communities across the United States within a matter of months, calling it a major step in the right direction when it comes to those reciprocal tariffs on April 2nd. The president says he's going to be more lenient for those. He says, in fact, he might charge less on the tariffs than some other countries charge us in some cases.
Hey, more to come. Thank you, Edward Lawrence. North Lawn working that story. Thanks.
What you have here are judges that are imposing national injunctions, which the Supreme Court, including liberals like Justice Kagan, have objected to. She said this is madness, that you have all of these trial judges who are imposing national injunctions. Congress is looking at legislation to curtail the ability of lower court judges to do precisely that.
As President Trump deals with an unprecedented wave of nationwide injunctions, congressional Republicans now looking to try to do something about it. What can be done? Well, Senate Judiciary Chairman Chuck Grassley has set a hearing on the issue set for next week, and he joins me now. Just a little bit more to listen to from President Trump yesterday.
We're having a lot of problems with the courts because the courts want to pretend they're president, and they're not president. They can't do that to this country. That's not their job.
What do you hope to accomplish at this hearing? Is it informational, or do you hope to advance a piece of legislation?
We have to advance legislation. The hearing is to set the basis for it. I think it's very obvious over the last 20 years there's been massive abuse of these national injunctions, whether we have a Republican president or a Democratic president. For the first 150 years, we never had any use of this, and then maybe for the next 50 years, sparingly used, but it's really jacked up. You can't have a situation where 600 plus different district court judges can make a judgment to apply something nationwide injunction. So this legislation would, in a general way, try to limit it to the parties to the suit, and then have immediately appealable. So we don't turn district judges into policymakers. They're supposed to interpret law, not make law.
Senator Dick Durbin had some thoughts about this hearing next week. Listen here.
There's a House Judiciary hearing on judges, and then there's going to be a Senate Judiciary hearing on judges as well. That Chairman Grassley and Chairman Jim Jordan are holding. What do you make of that?
It is rare that the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court reminds members of Congress of our important responsibilities under the Constitution. To continue to diminish judges because you disagree with their rulings undermines the credibility of the judiciary and puts the whole constitutional framework at issue.
I wonder what you think about this, and if you would agree that over the years, Congress hasn't done enough. Like, what you're trying to do is have Congress step up to its congressional responsibility.
Well, obviously, I'd be in Disneyland if I said Congress was doing everything in a perfect way. We act too slowly, and sometimes we don't act. But this is an opportunity where we have a real problem, not just in a Trump administration, but in a Biden administration. So we've had Democrats speak out about this in the past, and Republicans speak out about it. So I would hope we would get a bipartisan agreement to a piece of legislation. And then I think the professor you had on previous to me said how even Justice Kagan said that this is abuse. So I don't know how much better you can get from both sides of the aisle that we got a problem we have to deal with, and it's really exploded since Trump's become president of the United States.
How do you feel about calls for impeaching these lower court judges?
Say that again, please.
How do you feel about the calls for impeachment of some of these lower court judges?
You can't impeach a judge just because you disagree with their opinion, but we want to cover up or overcome some of that problem by having these cases that hang around for a long time, and they may have a national injunction after the money's already been spent, or some appeal goes on and the person has been wronged. That's why we want to have legislation that would appeal these decisions very quickly. We got to be a legislative body. I know the president's irritated with some of these judges, and I don't blame him. But you can't impeach a judge just because you disagree with the opinion.
Senator, enjoy your cherry blossom season there in the nation's capital, and thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Take care.
Goodbye.
A bit of a funny moment now with the Agriculture Secretary, Brooke Rollins. She's been on our show, and she can light up a room, right?
Yes, she can.
As she works to change the culture at USDA. Check it out.
You're not going to believe what we just found. Behind a door at USDA, we found a whole box of these seeds. These are specific tomato seeds that are for growing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility at USDA. This is why we are completely working to realign under President Trump's vision. No longer will we spend tax dollars on diversity, equity, inclusion at USDA.
Okay, there's that, right?
I do like a garden tomato, though, I have to say.
She clarified she loves seeds, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Just not those kind right there that you
Did
saw.
you see her at the Houston Rodeo on that beautiful Palomino horse?
On a Saturday night?
Oh, my gosh. That was a good-looking horse, and she can ride.
Let's go rodeo.
All right, President Trump signing an executive order requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. Democrats are fighting it. Karl Rove breaks it all down. Plus, the chaos on college campuses reigniting the debate on foreign money pouring into America's schools.
When you look at the chaos that has reigned on our university campuses and the abhorrent anti-Semitism that we've seen, there's a lot of reason to believe that is also linked to a lot of the funding that these universities get.
Store burglary captured on surveillance video. The suspects ramming a truck into the store in Springfield, Virginia, blowing the door open, then smashing display cases, grabbing more than 20 guns. County police tracking down two suspects, both just 16 years old. They recovered most of the weapons. One suspect got away for now. Some of the guns are still missing. We'll keep you posted on this story.
This is in an effort to restore trust in American elections. There were more than 10 steps taken, 10 executive actions taken throughout this one order. It directs the department, or the Attorney General rather, in Homeland Security to prevent non-citizens from any involvement in administering elections. It's a very strong election integrity executive order, and the president would also like to see Congress do something about this very important issue.
So they went there, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt there, outlining President Trump's EO, aiming to reshape the election system. Among its several steps, it requires people to prove their U.S. citizenship in order to vote. Karl Rove's here to talk about it. Karl, good morning to you. A couple things here. All right, so 4 bullet points. The executive order will seek to make you Show your voter ID by proving your U.S. citizenship. Mail ballots must be cast and received by Election Day. No QR code ballots allowed, and foreign nationals are barred from donating. So on Truth Social, he says, we believe this executive order is the farthest reaching executive action taken in the history of the republic to secure our elections. Okay, Carl, what do you think of it? Does it fly?
Well, there are a couple other things that it does that are worth mentioning. It dictates the nature of state registration cards, and it gives what's called the Election Assistance Commission and the Department of Justice authority over voting machines that states can have, and specifically has language in there that takes some kinds of machines because they're distrusted by certain elements on the right and says you can't use them. So, look, there are a lot of things in here. The question is, does the president have the authority by an executive order to require the states to do these things? Some states require already that absentee ballots, mail-in ballots, be received by Election Day. Others allow them to be postmarked by Election Day and received up to 3 or 5 days afterwards. Military mail-in ballots are habitually arrive after Election Day because they're making their way from U.S. bases in Europe or Asia or Africa. So the question is going to be, can the president do this by his authority alone? We're going to see this tested quickly, I suspect, in the courts, and it's going to be a real question, I think, whether or not he has the authority to dictate this to the states, given the fact that the Constitution gives the authority of election laws to the individual states. So we'll see rather soon, but there's a court battle coming. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, and the Secretary of State in Colorado, she said that it is unlawful, it would prevent eligible Americans from exercising their sacred right to vote, and that he is weaponizing the federal government, trying to make it harder for voters to fight back at the ballot box. And I suppose on the legality